Capital Improvements Plan Subcommittee to order at 6:31.
Oh, I thought that was.
Can we have a call to roll, please?
Bruce Cheney,
Here.
Sarah Jenna,
Here.
Mike Foot,
Here.
Mark Haynes,
Here.
Bob Hamill,
Here?
and Peter Burnett.
Yeah, I'm here, yes. Thank you very much, Rob.
You're welcome.
Recording secretary. There must have been minutes from last week.
Ah, yes, sir.
Did you chair last week?
I did.
I want to thank you for that. You know, it's an interesting conflict. My 92-year-old father is the chair of the Guilford Historic District Commission. And some woman wished to change the color of her shutters or something like that and needed to go before the, so he said, it will only take me an hour. I'm like, yeah, it takes you an hour to find your car now, but anyway, so thank you very much for doing that. That was a wonderful thing. All right, so, are there any questions or anything about the minutes? Any additions or anything? Anyone like to move them in?
Motion to accept?
Second? Motion and second. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. All right, the minutes are accepted from the previous meeting. Okay, let's start right off with my favorite department of the evening, Parks and Rec. Until we get to the next department.
Smart man. So, thank you for having us again. I'm pretty sure this is unprecedented that we get 2 shots at wowing you.
Wait, you guys were here last week?
We were here last time.
What, did you screw the whole thing up
We
and
did.
you got to
We
redo?
completely done.
Come on.
No, you guys had a couple of questions for us, and we are here to
Oh.
answer said questions.
Go ahead, thank you.
One of them is in reference to the skate park. You have a picture of the completed skate park in your packet, and that is a total of $90,000, which is what I asked for in the CIP for this year. But it was asked of us to see if we could kind of put it in a couple phases. And so what we have for you is 2 phases. One would be everything but the half pipe. Now, I know you all know which one the half pipe is, but Mike said, yeah, I do. So there's a picture of it in the box.
Ian
That's
said.
the half pipe in the far back. So everything but that would be included in phase 1. And that would be a little over $47,500. And then the half pipe itself is $41,500.
Wow.
So I just wanted to give you that information.
Just found out Nashua.
Oh, and they also asked how much Nashua's was, because I showed them a lovely picture of Nashua's concrete Taj Mahal of a skate park, and it was $550,000. Not what I'm asking.
No.
The other question that was posed by Charlie was about bringing forward the Weirs Beach bathhouse renovations. We had $90,000, and it's I'm not even sure which year it was, but it was significantly in the future. But he asked us about bringing that to the forefront, and we have a couple of, well, you can see on there that we've broken it down as to what costs what, and we were pretty spot on with that $90,000, I'm just gonna say.
The big thing on this is the drainage and the flooring. So our guys went out and looked at, we have 4 drains that are using, I guess, that are there. But 3 of them are working really well. 1 of them is not, right? And it's because there's a buildup of sand, or we believe it's because there's a buildup of sand right there. Either way, the very first step before we go and put in light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, windows, partitions, we've got to figure out what this is, because we don't want to put in $15,000 worth of partitions and then find out that we got to replace that whole pipe, right? So the next step is going in and
Scoping it.
yeah, I'm thinking, yeah.
We did snake it, we're gonna have to do a little bit more than that.
Well, you can scope it.
Yes.
They have scopes.
You could probably ask
Like that.
Public Works to do that for you, they got a camera.
I
I'm
think
sure
my
they'd be
dog
glad
could
to.
do it under my insurance, actually.
My, what a large camera you have.
So yeah, so
Seems
you
like
can
it.
see the breakdown of what things will cost, and those were actual costs. We actually got those. But the drainage obviously is the big piece.
Right.
It'll cost the most if we need to do it.
And then, the final question was, in regards to our biobarrier that we want to put along the walkway here. And a quick refresher, the biobarrier goes in alongside the walkway so that it has a chemical in it that encourages roots to not grow under the walk and thus grow up through the pavement, right? So, did a little bit of research on the chemical. It's called trifluralin. The EPA says it will not pose an unreasonable risk towards humans or the environment. It says it's non-mobile, so it's not gonna move very far from the biobarrier itself. It's gonna stay right there. It's not toxic in small forms to humans and birds, but it is toxic to fish and water animals. And that's because it doesn't really dissolve well into the water, so it'll just kind of like be in the water. Fish will eat it. But once again, the EPA, biobarrier themselves, they all say it doesn't leach very well because it doesn't dissolve in the water, right? So it'll sit put and just be in that area. And what it does is it stops cell division in the roots, so then the roots will just like kind of grow a different way.
And that is for right over here at City Hall where the river walk is bubbling.
How many feet would it be from the river?
From the water, it does look like it would get pretty close. If you go down just along the parking lot here, it gets,
Yeah, it's close.
yeah, and it's pretty gnarly all in there. Bunch of trees and stuff in there.
Will it be on the riverside of the hardscape?
It would be.
Yes.
Is there any way to keep it from migrating?
Keep the chemical from
Well,
migrating?
to ensure that it won't migrate, I guess.
I do not believe there is a way to make sure that we keep the chemical there itself. I think we rely on the chemical and its non-mobility, if that's a term.
It's not supposed to leach into the ground. is
Well, I
the-
understand that.
Yep, for sure. And it is always, I think,
But there's this thing called erosion, you know? And so things can be in solid form actually washed into the,
I think I'd
Water.
point out, if you hadn't seen it on, their presentation, it's actually a mesh barrier that they install on edge. So the mesh is impregnated.
oh, I see,
with
okay,
it, So it's not something that's
It's not just
poured
free.
into it.
okay,
It's,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
on
thank you.
a mesh barrier.
thanks.
okay.
It is still considered a Class C possible human carcinogen. That's from a study in 1986. The EPA has since changed their rankings like 4 or 5 times, I can't recall now, but they've changed how they classify chemicals since then, and they've said that trifluralin, we're not even gonna test it anymore. So it's kind of stalled out at this area. Since it's used in over-the-counter products like Preen, I get the sense that this chemical is, everyone's happy with it being used.
Well, they sell Roundup over the counter too.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what was brought up last time as well. There is a study from the Journal of Arboriculture where they compare it against a nylon fabric or a copper mesh fabric. And the biobarrier worked hands down a lot better than all the other ones. The roots got through the nylon fabric more, and as long as you have the right kind of nylon, which we're not entirely, we still have to do research as to like what makes the nylon the best nylon, right? It's kind of a coin toss as to whether or not that would work or whether it wouldn't.
And it's trying to prevent
Roots from growing underneath the hardscape,
destroying the
blasting.
cracking the surface.
Yes,
Do you think this would be effective about, for Japanese knotweed? Fairly voracious, bust up foundations.
Yeah, I think the biobarrier would be the one that would work the best.
But we haven't tested it yet.
We haven't looked to test it either, though. We used it on the WOW Trail, and it
Yeah.
wasn't for the knotweed. It was more for the actual tree roots.
Right,
So we've never-
how does knotweed work on it on the Wild Trail?
We haven't, it's not in that section.
Okay.
It's everywhere else. The knotweed is everywhere else.
It has been
Oh,
working well.
jeez.
It has been
So
working
maybe it
well
works.
with what it does on the Wild Trail.
So if you wait a few more years, you can see the testing.
Or maybe it works. Okay.
Oh, that's what that plant is. I thought that was flowers with bamboo. Okay,
Did anyone have any other questions for us?
appreciate you
There's some
coming
new
back,
faces.
that's
Of course.
unusual.
I do have one more question just before we go here. On this, on the skate park, are you gonna have to resurface there?
No.
No, you just use what's there, no resurfacing, no?
Yep, so the 90,000 is without a pad, but we have the pad available. It's already there and in good condition.
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions? Parks and Rec, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very
How's Bond Beach going?
Slow. It's coming,
Okay,
I
we'll
promise.
talk. Well, there's still some beach left. Okay. Next on our agenda, we have my personal favorite of the evening, the fire department.
Oh, yeah. Hey. I think there's 2 USB ports on there.
Well, we,
It's occupied. Yours.
There you go.
good evening.
Evening, Chief.
Right there we go. So, in front of you, you obviously have a whole lot of information that has been presented to you guys. I'm just gonna say right now, I'll start off, it's all a lie. I actually have a whole bunch of changes, but they're all good reasons, and I'm gonna explain, they're all really good things why it's changed. Start off just real quick with last year's funding. Between what the committee did and the city manager and the council, got funded for a new fire engine. And just to give you an update on that, that's in the, we're within probably 30 days of being able to send that out to, hopefully not a bid process. We're actually gonna go through a different company it's almost like going through the state bid process where, we'll be able to get this piece of apparatus ordered relatively soon. So, although it takes a long time to build, it will be ordered very shortly, and, certainly we appreciate that from last year. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that from last year. So in your information that you would have seen, we had 12 different items over the course of the next 3 years that were requested. Thermal imaging cameras, self-contained breathing apparatus, cascade system, utility vehicle, for Central Station, replace the forestry truck, remodel the weir station, some nozzles, and fire hose replacement, security system, refurb of ladder 2 or replacement of ladder 2, replace the rescue boat, and an ambulance. Through a couple different means, I was able to remove multiple items off that list. Thermal imaging cameras, cascade system to refill our self-contained breathing apparatus, our air packs, and enough hose to pretty much replace everything in the department was received on a assistance to firefighter grant that we're in the process now of going through the council for its approval to accept. One of my captains, Captain Bean, wrote the grant process. We've been trying for 3 years on grants. I know in front of this committee, we've talked about grants, and it seems to have, always failed, got stuck somewhere. But we got that, almost $150,000 worth of grant items, so, and all of those, those three things were on our request, so that's really exciting. The city council was able to fund, the new rescue boat, that towable, inflatable boat that we have that was out of service now. So we got that funded, so that's exciting. So that came off the list. And through some budgeting processes, that we've worked on over the last year, with the ambulance EMS budget, I think that we're gonna be able to take care of our ambulance through that way. So I kept everything in as placeholders because I think it was the right thing to do instead of trying to erase things, put them back in, erase things, put them back in. So they're there for placeholders, but with everything hopefully going in the right direction, we can move on from those. So that's exciting.
The rescue boat, does that say Motorcycle Week funded?
Yes, yeah, that was, so that, I hate to use the word excess, but that was the excess funds from the Motorcycle Week fund, correct? Is where where we pulled that out, yes.
Don't call it profit, surplus.
Surplus.
So you're gonna mark, it's a regular boat, right?
It's a 14-foot towable boat.
You got a little something on
Excellent.
there to indicate the funds came from Motorcycle Week?
It'll say Laconia Fire Department on the side. I didn't
And
plan.
something though about the funds coming from Motorcycle Week?
I suppose we could.
Well, I'm just throwing, I think.
We have little stickers on everything that comes from a federal grant that they make us put on every little piece of. Yeah, you buy a pencil with federal grants, they make us put a sticker on it to
Well,
say it was
I
bought
think-
by.
I think it's good for the taxpayers to know that some of the funds come from benefiting for hosting Motorcycle Week.
You might have some stickers even.
It's
I
up,
think I'd be happy to do that. Chief, I just have a question.
Sure.
You go very quick for my mind. I just wanna make sure. So we're taking off 1, 3, 8, 11, and 12?
I'm gonna say probably. I'd have to look at the numbers. 1, 3, 8, 11, 12, yes.
I got them, okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to be sure I didn't miss anything. Thank you.
So those are good things. I like coming forward to that at the beginning. The boat has, I know that wasn't through this committee, but for the councilors who voted on that, the boat's been ordered. Unfortunately, the boat's probably only a 2-week time frame to get in. The motor, though, is 6 to 8 weeks. I haven't tried to buy a boat motor in a long time, and it's very hard to get one of those right now. They take forever to come in. Thought we were gonna have to replace the boat motor on the big boat that's in the weirs. Fortunately, we didn't have to, we got it repaired. If we had to replace that, it was gonna be almost a year to get that motor. I couldn't believe it. I was like, it was amazing. So that's been ordered.
Hey, Chief, on the motor, is that is it a prop or is it a jet?
Jet drive.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Is the prop encased in a?
Yeah, it looks like an encasement, and it's got a round hole in the middle where the jet must come out of it in that way. So it's designed for shallow water, rocky areas, and something we never had before on that boat, but we obviously need because we use it in the rivers. That's its primary. So
Beat up the shaft? And
yeah, it won't beat it up like it was. So
Is that a 2-stage jet,
I'm not sure if it's 2-stage or not. It's 40 horsepower.
40 horse?
Yeah,
Does it still look like a motor?
yeah. It still looks the same as everything. It looks.
Saying, all right.
Yeah.
Probably a motor that's got the prop encased into a,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Everything looks identical to a regular boat motor until you get to the bottom, and then it's just an
Jet drive.
encasement. Yeah, jet drive on the
Does
bottom.
that have
Encasement.
a reverse and everything like that? Does this look like a?
I don't know. I didn't spec it out. We've got one of our lieutenants actually teaches people how to use these in swift water throughout the state, and he goes, "This is the boat we need. This is the one we want." And I said, "Okay, I'll go to the council." So this year, under some new stuff, The self-contained breathing apparatus replacement is actually going to be a modified. I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes. We had cylinders on there last year. This modifies a little bit. Utility for central station, the forestry truck, nozzle and hose appliances, and a security system. Doesn't say on there it's for central station. And sort of an update to the last couple of years is the remodel of the weirs, and I just want to touch on ladder 2 replacement again when we get to that point.
What's the utility for Central Station?
It'll replace the staff car that the crew goes around in.
I'm thinking of electrical.
Oh, no, sorry. These aren't in order of your list, it's just, they were just put in that way. Under last year's weirs renovation, there was a large dollar figure in there. One of the questions that came back from this board was, can we do it in stages? Can we do smaller amounts? Can we work up to something bigger? I wholeheartedly agreed with that, and so when I came back to it this year, that's exactly how I want to approach this. What I'm calling phase 1 is a renovation of primarily the living area, plus a little extra. Window replacement, some sheetrock that we have to add in a certain area. We're going to block off a couple windows for some heat, to hold some heat in better. New carpeting. This station was built '84. In the 22 years I've been here, the carpeting hasn't been changed. I can't imagine it was between '84 and '97. So new carpeting, I would think not. So new carpeting, update the kitchen. We have a very old baseboard heater type thing. It's about the size of the podium here. Inefficient. Upgrade that to something more efficient. Repaint the apparatus bay inside, and upgrade our radio system that's up there for house radios. That right there was what I'm considering as phase 1, if you will, to sort of break that down into phases like I was asked. This gets us a long ways. These were all actually, we went out and did get a couple of pricing. We didn't get quotes per se, but we did get pricing from contractors just to get so the numbers look real, and it weren't just guesses. Phase 2 and 3, this talks about sort of the bigger things that we had said last year. If we went for that big thing. Add a mezzanine to add more rooms there, offices, that type of stuff. Add a women's restroom. Unfortunately, the way the building lines up, it's just really difficult to add in a separate bathroom, a new separate bathroom without adding a bigger addition inside. But so, something to build forward to, and then potentially adding on a 3rd or a 4th bay to the station as another phase. So a little bit more of a little simpler, a little more concise, as opposed to just saying, we're looking for a lot of money to do this big project. Let's sort of start building stuff up and be a little bit more responsible that way. Oh, sorry.
Do you, but you don't have this drawn out into the next year's phase 2 or phase 3?
I didn't. I mean, I certainly could, but it would be a few, it wouldn't be in the next few. It would be, it would be down the line a little ways. The only thing I wish I could do a little bit faster would be the women's bathroom, to add a separate. My hope was always to look at it where the only restroom we have in that building backs up to the community center's bathroom. If there was a gap, for some reason there was a gap between the two, it would have been perfect to do something like that. But that didn't happen. That would have been nice. It would have been, if we blow a hole in the wall right here, we put it in. Plumbing's there, but that didn't happen. So that gets us, a good start on renovations without, trying to go too crazy. 2 years ago, we replaced the pump and tank unit on the back of this forestry truck here. Excuse me. I'd like to try to replace this unit, this truck itself. This was not ours originally. This originally we got this in 2012 from DPW. Painted it red, lettered it up, and we've been running this as our forestry. Like to get this replaced. The garage is doing a good job keeping it up and running for us, but it's hurting. It spends a lot of time in the shop getting fixed, and like to see this get upgraded. We already do have a plow for it. It's old, so the money I factored in replaces the plow, replaces the truck, and the lights and radio, which is standard with replacement.
What do you plow with it?
Mostly fire hydrants is our primary. What I did is on this one and the pickup that I'm looking for out of Central to have a plow is on real snowy nights. If it's real bad, we send that out with the ambulance crew, if we need, depending on where it is, if it's not something immediately downtown. We've had quite a few cases where we've had to plow our way into a call. So it works out well, but the primary plowing we do with it is fire hydrants. And it can save dozens of hours of hydrant time.
Talking about versus digging them out?
Yeah.
I
Some
saw you guys, so you just plow up to the.
we can't do a lot of them just because the way they're located, but there's some that really get buried, and and we can actually get this, it'll come down, we have one person in it, they go around, and when someone's having a difficult hydrant, they call, say, hey, come meet me at this one, and they'll come and blow it out for them, and then they'll just shovel out the rest of them. Of the probably 500 plus hydrants that we shovel, we maybe only does 50 of them, but that's 50 of times 30 minutes sometimes of shoveling, so it helps. I'd like to replace this is the car this was originally the fire chief's car, got moved down to the deputy of EMS's car, and now has been downshifted to the shift vehicle. We've started to put a lot of miles on these vehicles to offset using other apparatus for certain things. And we don't try to do it too much on emergency calls. But inspections, this goes out and does all the inspections now. Over 600 of them get done. All the ones at our central station get done by this, which really helps. Anytime there's a medical in the weirs that's a critical patient, especially when there's only 2 up there, this goes out of Central to be their backup instead of sending another ambulance, instead of sending a fire engine. This goes. This truck really starting to get used a lot. So I'd like to update this, upgrade this into a pickup. Having a pickup truck as a utility vehicle in the fire station is just smart. It's good for us. And this was great. We didn't think we'd be using it to the level as we did, but it's getting used a lot and much more than they ever did before. And now it's getting used so much. I'd like to upgrade that to a pickup truck, have that available. It's great for post fires. It's great for just kind of everything we do.
What year is that and how many miles are on it?
This is a 2005 with 105,000. We just had a pretty good sized piece of rust repaired on it, on the back, so I didn't get underneath it, but I'm kind of guessing if the sidewall's already starting to rust out, that we're getting some rusting underneath as well. No, good.
Hi, I'm Jay Ellington, I'm the new Assistant Fire Chief. One of the biggest problems we have in the fire service right now is we're dying of many things. Heart attacks, medical emergencies, vehicle accidents, but the 2 big ones are suicide and cancer. Part of our cancer issue is the gear we're wearing traps our carcinogens from fighting fires. The hoses we use in the building obviously trap that because it's in the fire, it's run down. The use of this pickup also is going to help us in that. This will give us a vehicle to put all the dirty fire hose in, all the dirty protective clothing and breathing apparatus in. It won't be inside this vehicle with a couple of people soaking into the carpets so that it's always there. It also gets that out in the open air, so when you drive it back to the firehouse as a firefighter, the contaminants aren't with us.
Right.
We bring it back to the apparatus bay. We use our industrial washer and dryer to put the clothing in. The members go upstairs and shower, change uniforms. Not just a pickup truck. This could actually, over the long run, save some of our members exposure to things we shouldn't be. So that's another thought. Thank you.
I'm just curious, I never knew that, I just thought you put the hoses back on the truck
Depends.
We usually try to wash them.
before you put it back on the truck.
Yes, The new hose is synthetic, so it can go back on wet. The problem is with all that stuff on there, every time we now touch it afterwards, we're still getting the soot and the oils and whatnot. Glass shards and powder maybe in it. The other thing is if it's a small fire in your home, we'd like to try to have it as clean as possible as we wind through your home to get to the small bedroom fire and make them,
Least of my worries.
we don't want to try not to make a huge mess.
He only has big bedroom fires.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
I'll take the soot and hold it into the water.
Small fires.
Last year in the, in my request, I looked at replacing the, cylinder piece of our SCBA's. It was a great plan, I thought. And about 3 months ago was informed that with the new standard that's gonna be coming out at the end of this life cycle, the complete unit is gonna be, expired. The problem is you never know when the NFPA standard is gonna change, because they don't say X number of years, they say X number of cycles of the code. 3 cycles of the code. This is gonna expire within the 3rd cycle of the code, meaning in 2022, between the end of 22, early 23, the packs will become expired. So, it was a good thought to try to do the cylinders and do this in a couple of packages. Unfortunately, that's not really gonna work.
Excuse me.
So, yeah, we're looking to replace those. There's 30 of them, plus spare cylinders. The pricing that I have is, I believe I have $290 down in your thing. That, the pricing I just got, before I turned this in, was just over $270. So I factored in a little bit more, knowing that it's not a this year project, and hopefully they don't go up too much in moving forward. The one nice thing we just found out with these, not to interrupt you, Council, sorry,
No, you're fine.
is, and this is a great thing, if this air pack, which we've had, this is the first 15 years that we'll have had this brand. We stay with this brand. The next 15-year cycle of them, they stay under warranty the whole time. That's unheard of in any type of thing, to find that for as long as you're allowed to have them, you're gonna be under warranty. I was kind of impressed by that. So, little thing, but it's, it'll be important to somebody, 12 years from now.
How long do the units usually last?
The cylinders are only good for 15 years, and they have to be junked. The rest of the air pack, they don't have a true expiration. They go on that cycle. So it's about a 15 to 20 year cycle. This one's gonna put it right at about the 15-year cycle. The problem is, and I didn't think of this because it doesn't affect us, we bought it at the beginning of those 3 cycles. If you bought it at the end of that cycle, you could actually only get 2 cycles out of it in a week, in theory. And well, luckily, we bought them at the right time, so it helped a little bit in the long run of this. So,
Question?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Chief,
Sleep at the wheel.
is there a reason that we couldn't do some of this? Rather than buy all of them at once, could we buy?
no, it absolutely could do that. And it was funny you bring that up. When I looked at this last year, thought about that. That's why I did the cylinders and then the packs to do it in this manner. There's actually a benefit to doing it that way.
Yeah, they don't all go bad at once.
They don't all go bad at once, and we have to hydro test these every 5 years, so we could actually send out a third, and a third, if you will. So no, being able to do this in stages is possible.
How much are they a piece? Just to buy-
Ballpark, just.
I have it.
You're saying you need 30?
Yeah, 30 replaces everything we have. We get a cylinder with everything, so 6 and 2, so about 8 to 9,000 each.
Yeah, right. Almost 10.
Yeah, 10's a good ballpark.
So if you
Not
did
cheap.
like 10, 10, and 10.
We could do 10, 10, and 10 plus a spare cylinder with each one, so it'd be 2 cylinders in the pack. 'Cause we do have replacement cylinders for each one.
But aren't you getting cylinders through the?
You get a cylinder and no cylinder with the grant.
Yeah.
No, that is the compressor, the air compressor system.
So
So just
if we put, I'm sorry, Chief.
No, go ahead.
So if we put in for 10 this year, 10 next year, and 10 the following year, you're gonna meet your phases?
We would meet our ability to do that, yep. That compressor system that we're changing out is our refilling them at the station. We had a nice wheeled one that came on a grant a few years ago, quite a few years ago now. The only way to get replacement part that's broken on it is overseas. Then the company that can get it can't get it because they're not making it they're not even making it. We're going, well, we'll make it again someday. That's literally what they're telling us. We don't know what to do. We've had a loaner compressor system in our station for almost a year now, probably almost a year now. Great on the company for helping us out, but, so we were glad we got that grant. I keep this on there, because I do think it's something that we need to at least address. I'm not looking for a replacement of this year or even the next couple of years, but it is something that we have to, we have to look at in the long future. I did not go out, my initial plan was to go out and get, look at some refurbishment on it. The problem is the manufacturers that manufacture this no longer in business. So looking at that is a question. The only thing I'll say on it is looking to the future, making sure that if replacement of this or a heavy-duty refurbishment of this is going to happen, what we don't want to do is go too far. Ladder 1, the tower downtown is almost 10 years old now. No, sorry, it is 10 years old now. It's 2009, so it's 10 years old now. 20 to 25-year vehicle. The last thing we would want to do is try to have 2 of these larger vehicles trying to get, major overhaul or replacement at the same time. So, because obviously we couldn't do that. So it is something we still want to consider. We still want to look at. Having this type of ladder truck with the straight ladder without the bucket on it and a ladder truck with a bucket on it in tandem is really important. You wouldn't want 2 of the same. If we're only going to have 2 in the city, you wouldn't want 2 of the same. You'd want having the because they do different jobs and they're used differently. So like I said, it is something we want to look at. We do need to keep on the placeholder, keep moving forward with it, keep considering it. I do plan on getting some refurbishment numbers. I'm not worried about it this year to look at it right now, but I will look at that. But it is something that, like I said, we do want to keep this on our mind. It gets used anytime we put ladder 1 out of service. It will back up the engine and the weirs. If the engine and the weirs goes out of service for short amount of times, we don't do it long amount of times. That's what our spare engine's for. So it has a lot of very good uses to it. So something I wouldn't want to lose, but we can certainly look at it moving forward.
Pardon?
Yes.
Sorry.
You're saying, really, truck 1 is 10 years old now?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It is. Time absolutely flies.
I've been sitting here too. I thought I remember that one.
No, it was a 2009.
All right.
And
Flies.
after the first 6 to 8 months of some pretty serious bugs worked out of it, it's been a great truck. It really has. Had some bugs that unfortunately mechanics can't fix because if you don't have a laptop plugged into the truck, you can't fix them anymore. Once we got through that mess, like I said, for 6, 8, 10 months, it's been absolutely wonderful piece of apparatus. Small figure on there for some nozzles and appliances. One of the things I'm trying to do, one of my focuses in equipment purchasing is standardization of stuff. So making some replacement of this now that we don't have to buy hose is to try to standardize all of our nozzles and replace some of our aging appliances. They're working right now. We should be looking at replacing them. They only last so long. Nozzles do break down. Nozzles are a little expensive. That's why it's difficult to try to fit them into normal operating budgets. So that's why we looked for it on here.
What do you figure the oldest nozzle you have in the department is?
That we're still working with?
Yeah?
Oh, we probably still got some that are pushing 20 years old. but
I
we
was
made
gonna
some
think
change.
maybe further back.
No, we made some changes though I won't hold Wes up here, but, there's a company called Task Force Tips. They make nozzles.
Yeah.
One of the oldest companies. We had one of our nozzles that we were still using when I started here is now in their museum down there because it was one of the first Task Force Tips bought in the country. Was bought right here, and it was Bud Wool, and so yeah, it was. So we keep things a long time, but they break down and they wear down. And I do want to standardize our stuff, and we're trying to do that with everything we purchase now. Everything I purchase, if I purchase something today, my plan is that's what we're going to buy moving forward, and we really try to standardize everything. So, getting there. We are getting there. I put in for a security system upgrade, and I put that a couple years out on the list. This will upgrade our security system at Central Station. We currently do have a security system. I'll call it a partial security system. It doesn't do all the station. It does parts of the outside, and it does parts of the common areas on the inside, the public areas on the inside. I would like to upgrade that and be able to get all of the outside of the building and get all of the inside of the building where, we'll have customers come to the window to deal with one of our secretaries. Nobody can see that someone's with them. Little things like that I think will make a difference. We don't have good view of the apparatus bay, inside or outside. So if summer day, the doors are open, somebody comes in there, we don't have a good view of that. So we're looking at upgrading that. The reason I pushed this out a couple of years and didn't ask for it in the next year or two, because I am working with the city's IT department to see if we can upgrade through our operating budget. I don't know how far we're going to get with it, but we are trying to do that. He's working with us. One of my lieutenants who handles our IT inside works with Nick in the IT department here. They've been working together. So if we can do this piece by piece and upgrade the system, great. If we run into an issue where the upgrade's just not going to work with the system we have, that's what this is for. This number's based off not a bid for the Central Station, but a bid I did when I was down in Belmont. This is the number we got from them. I added a little bit for the size of the building, and so it's a pretty solid number.
I see a note here that you're working with HSEM on a potential grant.
Yeah, we're working with HSEM on a couple of grants, and one of them includes this. It was that I got the impression of, well, maybe. Let's give it a try, see what we can do. So I am working with our local rep on a couple of different things. That is one of them, and we'll see what happens when that comes out with them. But I didn't get a huge warm and fuzzy feeling about this one, but I wanted to mark it down. I forgot I even put it in there, but just to say we are exploring other options.
I should tell you, I was the director of HSEM for 5 years, and they can make these things move around a lot. And I think we know somebody who knows somebody.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe we can pull some strings.
We're working on another one that's probably going to be a little harder for the city. It's actually going to help the city, not just. It's not a fire department thing at all. It's because I obviously serve as the emergency management director as well, so I'm working. It's for this building, but that's a whole different one.
Yeah, but HSEM has those EMPG grants.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
And, I think I would keep in mind that your facility now is the Emergency Operations Center for the city.
Yep.
So, if you start adding in those things,
It certainly helps.
it should help you.
I-
We need this for the security of the city's Emergency Management Operations Center in a disaster.
Yep. No, absolutely. I agree, Counselor. And I'll tell you, our local rep that we use now was a young lady who left. We have a new one in who actually has been in the organization for years and years. She's awesome.
Who is it?
Julia Chase. Does awesome for us now. The other one did too. She's the one that got us all of our active shooter grants and all that. Worked with us on all that. So,
Yep.
but I will continue working on that. I am with this project here, and I will continue with that as well. Yep. So, with that, I've taken up a lot of your time, but I had to start off with some good news, so I did that. That was the only thing I have on my checklist is that. On a side note, separate from this whole thing, I did look into the, removing of the double poles. He has been working on Union Ave, didn't make it as far as I thought, because we've had a bunch of, emergency breaks that we've had, but he is working down there, and it's, when he's not fixing the emergency, that's his priority, is working down. So he has been working on it, and I thought he made it a little bit further than he did, but he is chipping away down Union Ave. So,
What was
Great,
that?
thanks, chief.
The old
The-
telephone poles.
Oh, the pole, the
They
double
gotta,
poles.
they gotta,
Right, right,
it all
right.
goes by whose wire's next to go up on a new pole. And the fire alarm wire needs to be moved up off these
Oh.
poles before telephone cable and
Oh,
move
yeah.
theirs off, so. It's a
That's
pecking,
right, we maintain
pecking
all those, right?
process.
Yeah.
we do right now. Yeah.
Chief, I have just really one quick question. If you had to make a choice, because I don't know how this all plays out anyway, but if you had to make a choice between the forestry truck and utility truck, I guess that's right, which would be your priority?
I think it's 1 and 1A, but I would do the utility at Central as 1 and 1A is the forestry. I think we can get another year out of the forestry if I had to.
Just
And,
curious.
yep.
Is there any kind of a wireless alternative to having all those hardwired alarm systems?
Yeah, I'm working on that project right now. It's probably a 2 to 3 year project. City managers
Is it like
tasked me with.
Wi-Fi, is that?
There's a couple different ones. There's a radio box system, which is essentially like Wi-Fi.
Right.
There is telephone line system that you can use, which it doesn't necessarily help the end user because they still have to have telephone wires. But it's not our responsibility to make the repairs and fixes. So,
Right.
most of the places that are switching out of this type of system are going to that radio box system, which is a wireless, essentially Wi-Fi.
The reason I bring it up is that I think Littleton has done it, but some communities actually have Wi-Fi as a public utility. And the city, and the municipal agencies all use it for communication purposes.
It's not exactly Wi-Fi, but it works under the same principle.
Right.
So, yeah.
trying
Wolfboro
to
just
bridge.
switched to something like this. Concord is in the middle of switching to this right now. Salem did it a lot longer ago than I thought, but they did it a while ago too. So,
How many of the old-fashioned call boxes do you still have?
I think the last time I looked, we're probably in the 400 range.
Wow.
You know, we only have 2 or 3 on the telephone poles anymore because everybody has got at least one cell phone, if not more. So we're not using those as much, but the
Fixed.
fixed boxes on master boxes, yeah, it,
Don't you still make people get those if they have a business?
we do, well, we do. But moving forward, what I've already done is if you need to have a monitored system, instead of getting that, want to go to a newer system that isn't through our system, I'm okay with that because I want to move forward to getting out of it anyhow. So we're trying to help the customer.
Getcha. Thanks
So,
for that.
that's-
I was wondering.
No, it's not a cheap process either, and no matter how we go. But
It's 19th century technology being used in the 21st century.
yeah, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Any other questions? All right,
Have a good night.
thank you very much, chief.
Thank you.
And now for my favorite presentation of the evening.
Oh, I'm up again? Oh, sorry. All right.
Well, he's getting out of it.
I can't
will
find
just
the-
point out one fact. Ladder 1 doesn't fit in my maintenance garage, doesn't fit in anything I have to do maintenance on it. So we either do it outside or we do it in his building,
Or you get a bigger building.
or we get a building.
here we go.
I see how
we're talking.
we set this up, didn't we?
No, you'll see part of the discussion in regards to what we're doing.
Have a good night, everybody.
Take care, chief. Thank you.
Good night.
For those who were here last year, the format is almost exactly identical. Everything's just been updated. No sense to change everything and confuse people. Okay. All right. So that's the agenda, same as last year. Basically, we're going to cover the major changes, talk program years, out years in the annual program, then do sanitary sewer fund, and answer questions as you go on it. And we'll do a little bit for updating on projects. Okay. All right, so the major changes between 19 and 20 and 2021, some of it doesn't need funding from this part, but it's already funded, but I needed to explain this to set the stage. Court Street, the final surface, we'll have phase 1, phase 2 done, and the bridge will be done, and then we'll do the final topping
Top coat,
surface
yep.
after that. Court Street Bridge, typical bureaucratic problem. The historical people, not the hysterical people, but the historical people, say the bridge is old enough, they gotta do a special historical review. We've had it into them since about the January, February timeframe. We're bugging DOT to get it out of them so we can get a final answer and get it advertised. We're planning to get it advertised this year if everything goes right. Then based off the prices, whatever, we'll figure out when we're doing it next year. So it'll either be in the window before Memorial Day or it'll be in the window after Labor Day. And again, will be accelerated bridge construction.
Right.
So they'll close it, they'll demolish everything, and they'll drop the bridge in place. Union M to Walnut, at the end of this construction season, we'll have the intersection completely done, top coated, because we need that to make the ADA work with that funky hill going down to Elm Street. And then next year, we'll finish the piece going from Walnut to Stark, and then we'll top it the rest of the way. So that piece will be done. And then Academy Street Bridge is still scheduled for fiscal year 2022 in the state's program, so we should be okay for that. Just a reminder, Weirs Beach Bridge over the railroad tracks, going through accelerated bridge construction next spring. So a lot of our plans are being based off of when that bridge is gonna go down, because we're the detour.
Is that before Bike Week or Motorcycle
Well,
Week?
the requirement is they've gotta have it back up and passable before, Memorial Day. That's the state's requirement. Now, it may not be totally done, they may be doing outside works, but both lanes gotta be operational. Okay. Other changes, we were trying to get 3 of the main intersections funded this year for ADA compliance improvements. That's basically the chirpers, the countdown timers,
Yeah.
and all the ramps and everything. The problem, what we had, Main and Church, because of the physical characteristics of it, the price went up. It had so many improvements that we had to do to make it ADA accessible that it ate into the amount of dollars that we had available. So you'll see in the presentation as you go through the pieces, we have the others scheduled in there. But based off the projects that we have as part of it, Elm Street and Union intersection will be ADA accessible at the end of this project. Guilford and Busy Corner will be ADA accessible completely at the end of that project next year. And then this one will be done at the end of this year. So as we do the major projects, we're bringing those up to standards. We're on the space analysis portion of the DPW building to see how big of a building that we need and if it will fit on our current site. And you'll see more of that later. We're working with contractors now to get the retaining wall replaced at the north end of the boardwalk. If you ever looked at it from the lakeside, you can see all the erosion coming. The first contractor we're using basically it's one of those EJ, it's one of those contracts where you don't have to negotiate it. It's already set price out there for one of the state bid programs, and the first one we had isn't working, so we had to go to a second one. They were just overworked. And then the Moran Road landfill, that study is underway. We just finished producing the phase 1, the work plan for how to get from where we are now to whatever it's going to be to cap it properly, and we've turned that into the state and awaiting on comments.
We asked a question.
Yes.
Sure.
I know it's a little off of what you're talking about here, but we did talk at a council meeting about some of those blinking left turn signals at some of the intersections. Here's one of them where it might work. I wondered if that's included or even considered.
Not as part of that, not as part of this one. We had money just enough to do the ADA accessibility.
Which one are you talking about?
Right
Which
up here,
intersection?
Right.
Church and Main.
Your only one that you would actually have is, of the legs, you only have 2. The one for the left turn as you come in northbound on Main Street, and the one for southbound on Main Street. The other two lakes, right, yeah. The other
So
two lakes.
that's fixed with the blinking yellow.
Will be.
Well, this one
Yeah.
will be as part of the project. We just got the estimate in for it, and it's about $32,000, because of course Murphy rules, the box isn't big enough to handle all the additional. So we're gonna have a period of time, and we're working with them now, where we may lose the signals for 3 days,
Excellent.
because they're gonna have to
Works
replace the box and everything.
How will we do it?
Okay, all right.
So at Court and Main then, all the left turns,
All the left turns,
you'll be able to turn if there's no oncoming traffic.
you'll have the flashing yellow, which says you have to yield to oncoming traffic.
Yeah, just like we do.
You'll have a green first, though, correct?
Right.
You'll have a green arrow.
Green arrow followed by the blinking yellow.
Yep. Okay, and then other recommended changes, at some point, and it's really a policy decision level, we're gonna have to come up with a gravel road improvement program. Over the years, the gravel roads are sinking from the plow effect, you know, we keep throwing things off. Some of them are starting to turn into sunken roads where they're gonna become lakes or pools themselves at times, so we need to build them back up to reestablish drainage. The other option, if you don't establish a second program, then we'd have to start taking it out of the annual road budget to start creating rebuilding the roads back up. The other piece is the downtown pedestrian bridge is now in the same condition as the parking garage. The consultant that looked at it says we've got to start inspecting it annually to make sure it's safe to still have pedestrians on it. We'll talk more later. For Union Ave, come springtime, we'll be doing from Guilford to Spring Street. So Guilford Avenue intersection with Union will have ADA accessibility as part of that. Busy Corner will have that portion, and then we'll have the whole road reconstructed from Guilford base up to Spring Street
Next year.
next year. Part of the problem, what we're finding is the cost of construction's going up because we don't have enough drainage, and we're having to increase the pipes. And the pipes aren't necessarily in that road. The drainage for Union is down Jewett, down Arch, other locations, which we have to increase to make it work.
Right.
So we're sort of doing this piece to set up for the next piece. Let's see. Some safety things to talk about, and at some point, we really need to rebuild the north end of the Weirs Boardwalk, get rid of the pressure treated and go back to composite. Probably at that point, we'd have to do some of the supporting structure underneath to replace it, to bring it up to standard. Not really a fixed year to it, but something that we need to begin planning for. And then the bridge over Langley Cove is now on the state's red bridge list. And we'll talk more on that. And then for planning purposes, we need to figure out what we want to do about bike lanes and sidewalk along Weirs Boulevard, depending upon what happens with the WOW Trail and other things. And then it's, again, a policy decision. Are we going to keep the Weirs Beach docks like they look, or do we got to adjust them, or do we just want to fix, the way they are?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
On the sidewalk along Weirs Boulevard, is that something you're gonna discuss later?
This is really, you'll see it in the budget for out years for planning purposes. The part of that is we didn't budget for construction, we budgeted or recommended for planning. Because one, we're gonna have to decide if we want both sides, one side. If we can't get the WOW Trail, do we build a combination on it? There's a lot of planning pieces to it than just building a sidewalk. It's what do we really want?
I don't have to tell anybody at this table, but, the lack of a sidewalk along Weirs Boulevard has been a safety problem forever. And it has nothing to do with the WOW Trail happening or not. But and we'll talk about it later, but I just wanna say that's been an issue forever. And the planning board, we're constantly, it's like we're hoping that somebody's gonna do a piece of development so we get another chunk of sidewalk on the boulevard, which I think is kind of a
So,
crazy way to do it.
some of you may recall back when I was on the planning board 10+ years ago, I got a reputation for being the sidewalk czar, Nazi or whatever, because they were asking for waivers almost every development, and I kept saying, look, we can't afford to improve our infrastructure out of the budget. Sidewalks are always gonna be down the list. Let's let the private sector do what they can. And then if I never hear the phrase again, I swear to God, it will be too soon, and that is sidewalks to nowhere. So you've got a few sidewalks to nowhere along the boulevard as it is now, but they haven't been maintained. So they're deteriorating to the point where you're gonna have to rebuild them all. And it's not just along the boulevard, it's all over the place, wherever.
Yep.
They haven't been used, so you haven't been plowing them. That's basically what it is, and they're not being used by pedestrians.
And we're not even sure if the location where they're in are the locations where we need them to be in, if we're developing a full plan for all of Weirs Boulevard.
Right,
Weirs Boulevard has just got so many hundreds of pedestrians there. And especially at night, it's such a safety thing. I mean,
No, it is.
people
I
have no
agree.
way. So I'm gonna look forward
it's
to
gonna
having
be a
that discussion.
painful job widening that road in order to safely accommodate pedestrian and bicycle traffic. But it's gonna have to be done. And it's gonna be on the upslope side for the most part,
That's
Correct.
which means it's gonna impact a lot of property owners, and some buildings, some structures. So,
Okay, you'll see some projects that we have listed for DPW. Really, these projects are there just for conversation points, because it depends upon what your decision is, or what the eventual decision is on replacing my building or not, and where it's gonna go, whether we even consider those, because the new building or whatever it is may take the place of it. I have the room where it has most of the old records in my building. We have double firewall in case of fire. That will just buy us time. We lose my room. If it's the Belknap Registry doesn't have it, we're in deep trouble. So the purpose of this is to get all those paper maps digitized so that we will have them available in case of a serious incident. We got lucky last year, last year, when our 8-inch water main that supplied the building snapped and flooded us. Someone was in the office at the time because it came up in his office, so we were able to get the water turned off before it made it into our map in the storage room. Otherwise, we would have started losing things.
right.
If it had happened at night, we would have been in deep trouble. Okay, and then the parking garage, still have it in there as a placeholder. We still need to have at least $20,000 annually for inspections and repairs. And then the most current inspection, which we just finished in October, matter of fact, we did it last week. We're now in the position where in certain areas, we're gonna have to start reinforcing the top deck, not for carry traffic, but to hold the snow load. There's only 2 places, but we've got some other places where we're gonna have to put something up to protect the public who's walking, just from falling debris from the bottom, because we're getting enough decomposition of the pan and concrete. And we had 4 new areas where we have to crib underneath the bottom of the second deck.
I know what Councilman Bounds would say about that building.
As I was talking, for Public Works Building, those are the other projects that we have listed. Probably the only thing that we would have to do at some point if we're out years and whatever the building improvement's gonna be, is we'll probably have to get a project in there to fix our vehicle bay doors. We're gonna see if we can do it with operations and maintenance dollars, but it may be beyond what we can budget. And again, the analysis determined it's not economically feasible to repair without doing all the stuff to upgrade the internal systems just to stabilize the building. It was almost 2/3 to 3/4 of the cost of a new building.
So the Mechanic Street, the Messer Street facility, which used to be the Public Works barn back in the
Right.
day, the parking lot it's full of axle busters. I mean, people are going through there, trucks are going through there all the time.
We've patched it as, you see it on this as part of it. So a lot of it's.
But what I'm getting at is,
Right.
are you including those properties as well in your needs
The-
survey?
The initial space study is just gonna be how big does a building for Public Works as it presently exists needs to be.
Right,
We're looking at it from the standpoint, if that says it doesn't fit on the site, then if we're moving to another location, we'll also have the ability to say, this is how big it needs to be if you're adding in my other sites.
so you're picking up what I'm putting down here
Right.
about all. I mean, we have a lakefront Public Works yard, for example. Doesn't seem to be the highest and best use for that land.
You will have a very difficult times getting somebody to buy that
I know.
because of the amount of contamination
Little
that's in
bit
it,
of
but you may
brownfield.
find somebody.
Well, maybe the same person that buys the former Irving Oil property just upslope from that. Same problem, brownfield, I mean,
The one thing did come up in our annual summer relicensing our scale, and you can see it in this picture to a degree. If that little eye-looking device, that's the actual scale measuring, it's on 4 corners. If you look at the supporting device, you can see it starting to curve. We looked to see if we could find repair parts. That scale manufacturer still is in business, but they're no longer in the truck scale business. They don't even have repair parts for all the pieces. So this price, we got out to a couple of firms and said, okay, can we retrofit it without replacing it? And the answer is for about $25,000, we can change out the measuring device and still keep the scale. My philosophy behind this one is it's one of, you want to plan your replacement versus having the replacement happen at a time when you're not ready for it.
Right.
Wes?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, you look at this picture, and in my mind, there's probably been the absence of maintenance.
It's not so much the rust on this piece. I think.
Well, I
what we-
mean, yeah, it is. I mean, we're letting our equipment just rot away. I mean, we don't do any preventive painting on it or, you know, getting rid of the rust, and some of our plow trucks are the same way. You know, at one point, they were all painted by the guys that work there.
Right.
And they look pretty good. Well, they're getting right back into the same situation where
We
a little
get
bit
s-
of paint wouldn't hurt.
We can still paint them. Our only options is we brush paint them. Or we
That's fine.
spray paint them. That's the,
Doesn't, you know, if you get rid of the rust and you treat it and you do it, they're gonna last longer than instead of letting them rot away.
what we used to do is use I'll say the auto body shop type technique and use the professional gun with all the things on it. The only problem is the building didn't meet the specifications, our filtration system didn't meet the specifications. So we were in deep trouble if we ever got inspected or had an issue. Okay, out years. You'll see the changes are in blue here. This is not an exact request. This is more of, this is the timeframe we probably need to start thinking of it. Court Street from Bridge to Belmont, probably in the 2026 time, we'll need to start looking at doing something in that area. My guess, best for Union from Stark to Lake would be 2025. We may have to do something before then. If you really look at it, the road is beginning to heave and I want to say, really become uneven. You're not really seeing as much cracking as some of the other places, but it's getting there. And then Union Ave from Spring to Main Street, probably in the 2026 timeframe. Drainage improvements that we've got to consider is Weirs Boulevard. A lot of our road problems is associated with the lack of drainage that's out there. Most of our drain system is, you have a catch basin on one side of the road, you may have another catch basin that ties in it and it goes straight to the lake. So this will be a very interesting project because we're gonna have constant permits as we go along to try to fix the drainage. And then White Oaks Road is the same. If we really want to keep that road, we're going to have to do some drainage improvements as we go out. And then the city parking lot in Beacon Street East, that really hinges on whatever the plans are for the parking garage. You don't want to repave it if we're going to put a new parking garage on top of it. So that's linked to that. Bridges, the state program for the state aid bridge, and you'll see more later, is booked to about 2030. They won't even take any new applications until the next 10-year plan cycle, which begins in about 6 months. So the earliest we're gonna be considered for budgetary purposes on the Langley Cove Bridge on Weirs Boulevard is 2031. That means Hilliard Road, which is another one of our problems, this is gonna be at least 2032 or beyond that. And then we've got some bridge rehabilitations that we've got to start scheduling. If it's major enough, we can get that into state bridge aid. If it's minor enough, then we'll be doing it on our own. Just a reminder, the Wood Bridge over the railroad tracks on Centenary Ave up there by Compass Cafe is still scheduled to be removed in 2025.
Ask a question about that.
Yes,
That's scheduled to be removed by the state,
correct, it's a state bridge.
and that's a state bridge. So have there been any public hearings on that?
2,
Where? Here?
here. They were part of the 10-year
good.
program.
Were you there for those? Do you know
No.
anything about those? Anybody here know anything about those? So
I
it was
haven't heard
only,
anything.
so it was part of the 10-year, so it was part of that whole big program?
Correct.
But no public hearing specifically just about the
No.
bridge? Well,
You probably won't have that until they start getting closer to 2025 and they put it into the actual planning cycle for what they're gonna do for it.
because I can assure you, my fellow panel people here, that the people at Weirs Beach have heard about this, and the reaction has been negative, if I may be so mild about that. And I see in there that there's, and you can comment on this about Centenary, the intersection there, but, you know, if they take that bridge out, I'm guessing, and Wes can correct me, that are we gonna be utilizing also the intersection that goes in front of the weather vane to get on there, or are we just gonna expect everybody to go 2 ways on that other end by that new
Is that
development
close to
there?
traffic, or does traffic still go over that?
What?
The Woodbridge, traffic still goes over it.
Yes.
We close it on the 1st of November.
Yeah, it closes just in the winter, Bob.
Which is when the access at the crossing
Opens up.
opens up.
That's correct. That's over
Yeah,
by the weather vane,
right.
that opens up.
Right.
So, but that's hardly, again, I'm just talking out of, but to me, that's hardly constitutes a good intersection or entrance to that road right there. No, so, you know, and so are they planning to take the bridge down, Wes, and make that just a regular road over those tracks?
No, the bridge is coming out, nothing's being replaced. The last discussion that I had with their planner was, as they get close, they'll start looking at what improvements they're gonna do to either the intersection by Aqua Marina or the intersection by the weather vane, to make up for the lack of the bridge.
When they took down Moulton Street, they put up a pedestrian bridge.
Yeah, we're not looking at a pedestrian bridge here, because, again, we have, he just said it, they're looking at doing something at the intersection in front of the weather vane. What are they gonna do? Take away the the area in front of the weather vane? Are they gonna take away the boardwalk on that end to make that? I mean, there's just no logic there.
Are you-
So I would say, the state's gonna be getting a little bit of a firestorm on this from residents up there. And,
Well, they need to start pretty quick.
yeah, well, I agree, Bob, and my point is, they've talked about it, a 10-year plan. You know how many people show up to those or not, but if they have and I'm gonna start pushing down on the state, that they need to be starting having public hearings on this now, not a month before they plan to do this construction work.
I would
Go ahead.
say that if you haven't experienced life down in that neighborhood, when the delivery trucks come down through to deliver to the dive or to the restaurants down there, that combined with the fact that residents whose primary residence seems to be somewhere else have taken upon themselves to add more green space to their front yards, it's fairly narrow and dangerous. Trucks, delivery, ambulance, anything. Once that place lights up,
But you're not, but that's got the bridge isn't gonna change that.
but
The
but
bridge-
there's still access in and out of there. I think what I'm getting at is the amount of traffic that will be forced to go all the way from Aqua
Right.
Marina, which is itself some sort of discussion
Or
for.
are they expecting us to have, the city, to have that spot in front of the weather vane to be open to traffic all summer long, to alleviate that? You know, you're looking at a potential problem there.
Not without signal control at that intersection. With all the pedestrian crossing, you kidding me?
Yeah.
It'd be the largest cluster in the city. It would be dysfunction junction all
I have
over
no
again.
idea why the state wants to take that out, but this is gonna be.
Because it's
mark my
old and
words, this-
they don't wanna maintain
Yeah,
it,
God forbid, well, okay.
I guess.
Smoke from the train.
Based off of, if they're really planning 2025 to do the work, then that means in the 2022, 2023 is when they'd start the planning, the design, the public hearing process.
I'm gonna try to get a public hearing on that this year.
You go for it.
It's not a matter of me going for it. this really needs to be looked at by the city.
I'm saying it's a good idea.
Oh, I mean, well,
You're the state rep, you go do that.
the backing from, and others.
Absolutely, 100%.
And
Constituents love you.
just a reminder, we have a federal regulatory requirement since 1990 to do an ADA self-assessment, which is basically a complete inspection of the physical infrastructure and the systems to make sure we have a plan to bring them up with the ADA accessibilities. We have never done it. The only reason I bring that up is theoretically, if either the federal government could sue us or a third party could sue us to have us bring that, develop that plan.
What plan is this for? Wes?
ADA self-assessment,
For the whole city?
whole city. All the public infrastructure, I should say, which includes, the websites, buildings, our processes. It's a complete self-assessment. It does not include the private infrastructure. Okay, annual programs. The big one everyone keeps asking about is the maintenance and repair of city streets. That is the one where we do all of our small projects. Like we shimmed Lexington Drive this year, we did Grant Street and some of the others. That's where that money comes from. This year, we had about $1.3 million in dollars available to us. Typically, the city manager tries to get us someplace in the area of 1.5. We're making some of the bond payments out of it, so it dropped it to 1.3. I suspect with more bond payments coming online for the second bond and coming, that's probably could drop a little bit more, but again, it depends on how much money, other money becomes available to do it. So I don't have a good feel at this time, too early in the year. Now, that also includes all the ADA accessibility requirements, because in federal regulations, if we put a new top on it, the sidewalks have to be brought up to ADA. So although you may get 1.3 million for roads, between the time you put any drainage work that you need to keep the roads there and your ADA, you're probably really only talking somewhere in the neighborhood about 1 million out of that 1.3 for actual road surface. The rest is going to sidewalks and other things. Citywide drainage, just a reminder, we are not a municipal separate stormwater system permittee yet. We should be. We actually meet the federal regulations to be one. EPA and the state's plans are, they're working from the Massachusetts border on the way north to begin bringing people into the program who are supposed to be into the program. So at some point, could be 2 years, could be 3 years, could be 4 years, we will be brought into the program. The difference between what we're doing now and the shoreland or the projects piece, I'll support that, is when we do a project and we're impacting it, we have to do all our permits. Behind this thought is you're not doing anything. You now have to come up with a plan to bring yourself and the city into standards, because you're now a permittee. So it's more of a, not when you need to, but how you're gonna get there. Sidewalks, sometime in the future, we need to do the same thing that we're doing with the city streets. We need to come up with a management program for the sidewalks. We also have fence, guardrails, retaining walls, DPW vehicle purchase, you'll see more on that later. And then the Moran Road landfill. I just wanted to update you on the limited reuse soil. You'll see that in much more detail later, but that is the new requirement that we have, and it's impacted us on Court Street and Union Street and how we manage the material that's underneath the road. And here we go. The key thing on the on the LRS, and you can see that at the bottom, the top 6 inches of subbase underneath the asphalt and shoulders are treated as contaminated. Not hazardous waste, but limited ability to use it. So it either has to go to some site that's authorized for proper disposal, or we have to have a permitted site where we can take it, it can be mixed in with other materials so the contamination level comes down, and then you can use it for other things. We're sort of saying, okay, it may save us money if we establish that process ourselves here for us, and we're looking at the Moran Road landfill as a possible site. And one of the options as we're going through the remediation process for Moran Road landfills is to see what it would take to bring that operation in sight on it And if we set it up right, it could be a money-making venture for us, where other towns around us could be bringing it to us to be processed and then properly handled, properly used after that. So that type of material, you leave it in the right of way, pay for disposal, or you got some site where you process it and you can use it for other options. DPW vehicle replacement, we got a bond this year for another truck. That probably payments will be in the neighborhood of about $12,000, so that bonds lease purchase program that's presently $132,000 a year will probably go up to about $144,000. We get $190,000 a year, so that leaves me about $50,000 to get vehicles. I can't buy an F-550 plow truck for that. It's in the neighborhood of $100,000. So generally, we either use it to pay, see if we can get more bonds to buy another vehicle, or we use it, hold it for 1 year, match it with the next year to get enough so we can buy a vehicle. Just to give you an idea, the cost of my large plow trucks, the last one we bought a couple of years ago was $178,000 equipped. A sidewalk tractor with a plow and a blower on it, if we decide to go that way, is about $125,000. So my equipment is not cheap. Part of it is the federal diesel emission standard. It's been in use now for a long time for the trucks. It's now flowing into all the construction equipment. So any of the new construction equipment that I get will have that, and we're seeing the costs go up, independent of the normal inflation for steel and everything else. Vehicles are going up about 5% to about 7% per year between both inflation and the cost of the environmental. To hold our operational costs down, we're trying to pure fleet the engines. As the fire chief was talking about, if you don't have a computer, you can't figure out what's wrong. We're trying to keep our engines to Cummins, get it a different, limit it to a couple different types of vehicles, so we don't have to buy as many of the software programs to be able to diagnose what the problem is and fix it. If someone goes into one of the new trucks now, doesn't wait long enough on the fire up sequence, your check engine light comes on and you can't take it off unless you plug it into the computer, the mechanic looks at it, figures out what's wrong, and then clears it based off of his analysis. So, life is fun. Okay, fast chart.
Just before you go on, we had some issues on Main Street and Pleasant Street last winter with snow plowing and stacking up and
Right.
whatever, and I think we authorized some additional funds
Right.
to, are we gonna snow blow that this year?
We're gonna have a standard set up where it gets so high, so wide, then we'll snow blow it. Well, the money, what we're gonna use, depending upon what the storm cycle is, we'll either have a contractor come in to do everything, or we'll have a contractor come in with just the dump trucks, and then we'll either bucket it or we'll blow it into it.
But the snow blower is functioning.
Yeah, the big snow blowers function, we tune it up every year, test it, make sure it's working.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, where was I? Whoops, I was on the wrong one. Let me go forward. Okay, just to give you an idea what the age of the fleet, this is not everything. If you look to the solid blue line, that's how many vehicles that I have. The solid green line that's to the right, that's for the number of vehicles I have that are older than 10 years. So as you can see, I've got one truck that's 2018. I've got two trucks that are blue 2015, and then I got the rest of my fleet is all older than 2009. And you can see what it looks like as it goes through. My oldest fleet right now is the 550s. There are three of them on my plow trucks. 550 is probably the smallest plow truck that you can put a wing on, and even then it's pretty abusive to it. So those are the ones we're trying to focus on now to get replaced. They're in pretty bad shape. Okay, other equipment that I'm looking to get is some road paving equipment. We want to get a second paint machine. If you've seen my guys going out, they do either white or they do yellow. What we want to do is have a white and a yellow, so when they go to one location, they can do both colors at the same time
With two different machines.
with two different machines, so we don't have to change out the paint. And then we'd also like to get a grinder, because we found out how useful it was when we did the realignment for the parking on Beacon Street East and West. That way, if we get some small changes or we get some issues that we want, we can take it out with a grinder.
I thought you had a grinder that went with the Bobcats. They had one.
No, it's a different piece. The ones you get with this is it just sort of scrapes the surface. It's like,
That can't do that.
oh, you don't want it to drive off after we do it. It's a difference between being a sandpaper and a rasp. The one on the Bobcat's a rasp. You want the sandpaper that just sort of sands off the paint. You want it to take the paint and leave the asphalt there. And then we're looking to get one message board. We may be able to do that operational dollars. We'll see how the fiscal year goes. We found out how effective it was with actually communicating with people between the construction season and what we were doing, setting up for the reverse angled in parking.
Peter,
Yes.
hey Wes, the message boards now, we rent them from the state
The ones that we have right now are part of the contract with the contractors.
with Busby?
Right, so it's underneath the traffic control. The one that we did for the reverse angle in parking, we rented it from one of the rental companies, so it was a contract directly with us.
Just ballparking it, what do they cost you?
They're about 17,000 a piece for the size that we would get, not the interstate size, but, it's a middle size.
Yeah, because the police department has asked for them, and now you're asking for them. I'm just wondering if we'd be better off just to, buy 5 or 6, 7 or 8, or whatever.
We probably need at least 2.
Okay,
The benefit you have is you can use them for like what we did for reverse angled in parking, but if you also want to advertise an event coming up, you can put it someplace on a city street and program it for that advertisement.
Didn't we talk about this, Mark?
Hmm?
Didn't we talk about that with
Yes.
the police?
Yeah.
So if we bought these 2 that Wes is
We both
talking
use
about,
them.
we could use it for
Right.
all the departments,
Yeah,
right?
and we just schedule them like we do in, the vehicles that the city hall uses. Not just first come, first served, but who's got priority for what the event is.
the renting wasn't cheap, I am assuming.
It's not bad, but the problem is do they have them at the time you want them? Yeah.
And how much did you say
They're about 17,000 for the size that we want.
Are those do they have a lot of problems with those though for upkeep?
No, they've been, all you really have is a battery and a computer in them. They're all solar, so.
Computer.
I had, when I was the fleet manager for Manchester, we had 4.
But
And
they
the
don't
batteries
break
were
down
the
a
ones
lot.
that gave us the problems. That was only because they wouldn't leave them out long enough to recharge. Computers never gave us an issue.
So just as a check on this, when the police asked for 2, they were asking for $36,000.
Again, it depends upon what size you're talking about. So that's the piece that,
1734 off $2,000, so maybe it's a little bit bigger.
It had the radar, they didn't tell us that it had the radar that would automatically send the ticket.
It does?
No, they did not say
Very
that.
sarcastic, I hope.
No.
Don't be starting rumors now.
okay. Sewer,
It's not a bad idea, though.
we're gonna be replacing the sewer in Union Ave from Guilford to Main Street as part of the project. What we're gonna be doing really for the next year, the piece that goes from Guilford to Spring Street. We've got to do the whole section, but we wanted to talk the whole piece to you. For the most part, the sewer section will look at, every time we do a road improvement project now, what's the condition of their sewer in it? To make sure they fix anything before the project comes in, so they don't delay us, and we don't have to go back and cut something because they forgot something needed to be done. The sewer improvements that you see, that's the typical things that we try to do. If something fails on us we didn't anticipate, that's the lining that we do when we don't have to dig up a road. We just blow something in, to make it whole again for it. We're doing a lot of analysis right now for lining to reduce inflow and infiltration, to kind of minimize what we're sending to the wastewater treatment plant, because we're looking at in the future having that fee based off of how much flow goes to the plant from the city. We've got 3 pump stations we're still working on, Langley, Keyser, and Lawrence, to bring them up to the current standard with pumps, all the electronics in it so it works. And then we're looking at the Black Brook for getting some debris and odor control removal in there to help us. And then long-term, we're looking at a Vector truck dumping station. Right now, we take it to the lagoons at New Hampton. At some point, those lagoons won't be open to us anymore, so we'll have to have some place to dump it. The only place where we can dump it right now is we have to go all the way down to Allentown otherwise. And that, for sewage, that gets a long haul. So we're looking at what we can do in a local area to be able to support us. And for the most part, we're the only ones municipal-wise in this area who's got one. We help Belmont, we help Guilford, we go up to Meredith if they need it.
What do you use the Vector truck for?
Two things, pump cleaning and pumping out the sewer lines if there's issues. We do a lot of manhole cleaning with them.
Okay, so these are big, the pumps are centrifugal pumps, right? No?
They're a vacuum type operation,
Okay,
where
but
they're a sucker, and then they have another one that puts a high pressure water out so we can put a nozzle down the pipe and blast it clear.
got you, all right.
That truck's used a lot.
That truck's used a lot.
That's used a lot.
And then we're using both a combination of bond and loan payments. We got a loan from the state as part of their water fund. I can't remember all the abbreviation on it. That's really gonna be looking at Elm Street, because we've got some major dips in the sanitary sewer in Elm Street, as well as looking at the area, Belvedere, Sheridan, Franklin, that's around it. Okay, new projects, Academy Street, the state 10-year plan still has it in 2022. As we get closer to that, we'll have to put in the rest of the money for the city's share. Langley Cove, again, they're fully committed out to 2030. Brady Sullivan agreed to fund 1/3 of the city's share for that project. And we're trying to get it into the state program when they open it up again in about 6 months.
West Academy Street, would that be just similar to Turkey Brook?
Correct, we're probably
On
gonna
Court
do,
Street?
we're probably gonna do, again, accelerated bridge construction on that. They're finding out from the experience that the cost for doing that is about the same as the long-term construction cost for, single lane alternating. It's a higher impact, but for a very short period of time. So it may be more beneficial to make harassments for, a month versus for 9.
Do they build that on site? The bridge?
Depends what the crossing is. Sometimes they'll build it right beside it and just sort of push it across. Other times they can actually truck it in and drop it, depending upon the size. We already talked the north.
Center Road, you'll see what goes wrong when they build one lane at a time. They've been
Yeah.
at it for
Yes,
a year and a half.
That ain't a big bridge either.
no.
They can't
Celery-
find workers.
Accelerated bridge construction is the way to go if you can make it work. Let's see, we already talked into north end of Weirsbridge Boardwalk. We're saying 2023, again, it's money, what we want to put in when, but we're gonna have to do something at some point. Again, Inspect Weirs dock, this is really to get the guidance going of what do you want? So we can start looking at it based off of what you want.
Guys, can I-
I think we should have a totally different design down
It's
there.
very outdated.
Yep,
One big boat takes up the whole thing.
yep. We gotta be able to have segregated areas for different types of boats, for different sizes of boats. You gotta start making use of your shallows a lot better up there.
Right.
So, design.
Yeah, so part of it is, we can go out and we can fix what we've got, or we can change it. The guidance I really need is, do we want to change it? And if it
You think
is I need some
street
seed money to
construction-
start the
I
process.
think street construction is expensive, Wes, try marine construction.
I know.
Wes, can I just ask you to go back to
Okay.
the boardwalk?
On the boardwalk, boardwalk.
I will after. Right now, you are doing maintenance though, I mean,
Right,
you get,
yes. I mean, we go out and we inspect it at the beginning of every spring, see how many boards we got to change out, and we put new boards down.
okay, I want to ask you, and my honored colleague here has just asked me, where's Moron Street? I should know that, I can't.
Moran, not
Oh,
moron.
Warren.
I'm the,
Old
Okay.
Warren Road
You
is
go
next.
south on 107. You got Gilbert Block on the left and the right. Your next is road is Frank Bean,
Right.
going up to Country Club. The road on the left immediately after that is Moran Road.
Moran Road used to be the access through to Cotton Hill before Frank Bean Road was extended out that way.
Do we have a
So
more
it
on
used to
road?
be a through stroke, now it goes right
Yeah,
through
you live on it.
Reed's Auto Wrecking.
That's my driveway.
Since you asked the question, all the information that we have is we used it for a landfill for about 2 years in the early 60s and stopped.
Yeah.
Then, I don't know how long we used it, but we were using it for construction and construction debris landfill for city projects for quite a while. We got a good-sized hill of asphalt, concrete, and other land-type debris mixed in
Did
there.
the boulevard concrete go there?
I think so.
That's a long time ago.
It's a lot of stuff in there.
Not that long ago. Episcopal took that up. I wanna say that was in
I
the
thought they, oh no, that was.
late eighties, late eighties, mid-eighties, late eighties, Episcopal Construction took all that up.
And that's the site that we use to
That was
put
a long time ago, Charlie.
our stockpile of hot mix that we use in the wintertime to put into the hot box. We just cover it
And you still,
there. We don't have any other place we can put it.
Wes, while we're up at the weirs, where are we on, fixing the drainage structures up there? You said
Are
there was
done.
3 of them.
They already did.
They are done.
They just did. They did that and they finished the crack sealing down the center line joint
We swear.
that seemed to be
$4
separated. for
million
some-
project and
that
2
was
years
Busby
into
that
it.
fixed those?
Me and the
Yeah,
mayors.
no cost to us.
Huh?
No cost to us
Is there still a warranty on those?
for those repairs, right? All the ones that we just had fixed were ones that we had identified before the warranty expired.
So now is there warranty on the repair work they just did?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, about 2 years down, 2 years since we spent $4 million up there, the structures are going bad. It's like every 2 years, no matter what they do, it goes bad and we gotta fix it.
Well,
There's a problem with that.
our standard procedure right now is at the 9-month point, we do an inspection. We go out there and check everything. That way we can give them a list before it expires, so it's in the system.
That stuff should last more than 2 years.
Yeah, I agree, but
There's either a problem with that, we're not watching them when they do it, or there's a problem with that half the stuff they do, we gotta go back and redo it.
we have full-time inspection on the Court Street project.
And we didn't have it up at the weirs.
We didn't at that point,
I
right?
didn't.
I do want to point out one fact, the Moran Road landfill site, we think most of the material that was put in the landfill is on the city side, but we also own 47 acres in Guilford. That's adjacent to our property in Laconia.
Well, let's move it all over on the.
It's easy, I get it.
We'd still be responsible for it. So Court Street Bridge, our best guess, we think, just based off of how fast the state's moving, it'll probably be constructed between Labor Day and Columbus Day of next year. That's our best guess. Court Street to Main Street, we already talked about that piece. We funded Phase 2 mostly out of the 1.6 million or 1.3 that we got for the bonds, where we're paying back using the transportation fund, the $5 for when you register a vehicle, and we're gonna use the second bond for Guilford Avenue.
Wes, has anything changed as far as Court Street? I mean, the time duration?
No, they've got the binder course down
Yep.
on the intersection. They reclaimed today. Everything goes right weather-wise. We should be sometime right around the 1st of November paving Court Street binder.
But the bridge itself on Court,
That's what I was going back. This is what we think, based off of the states. That's the bridge over by the party store. We think, I want to stamp my foot. Based off of the issue with the historical, we think we can get it worked out such that we can bid it this year. Looking at the prices that we get, we may want to hold it till between Labor Day and Columbus Day to get a better price.
okay, are
We're
we
starting to
talking,
get,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Right.
Are we talking 3 weeks, a month?
what we're going to give them is a 6-week period, but they got only 4 weeks to have a closure.
Okay.
That's the intent.
So once they start, they've
Once they
got 4 weeks to
once
finish.
once they close it, They got 4 weeks to get it back open again.
Oh, gotcha.
But after that, they got some, they
Got
can
a
do
lot of
some
prep
prep
to
work
do,
and
yeah,
after
yeah.
work on it.
Well, they've been doing some utility work in preparation.
That was the Liberty Utilities, because they had to move their line to clear the abutments for the new bridge.
Right.
They had to go and relocate and go deeper.
Yep.
That was if you were watching, that was an interesting bore they did.
Are they going, now, since you reclaimed Court Street today,
Right.
with the rain and all the potholes that are in it right now, you're gonna fix that tomorrow for
Right.
Pumpkin Fest?
Yep. Tomorrow's cleanup day, get everything all set down in the Court Street and the intersection for Pumpkin Fest.
How much more expensive is it to asphalt at night than during the day?
There's two elements to it. You're paying overtime for it. Then the plant's gotta be open. If you're not doing enough for it, the plant may not open up. But the third piece is, we generally find the quality of work at night goes down than it does during the day.
Geez, what's the state doing on the interstates? They pave at night.
That's the interstate. I mean,
The vast majority of streets in town, Wes, I can understand, but something like Court and Main,
Easy
at rush hour,
paving anyways.
it just seems like we could have done it at night or tried to. Is it frightfully more expensive to do it at night?
the big problem with some of our small projects, we may not get a plant to stay open to do it. If they're paving for the state, no problem, because the state's got a whole bunch of doing, we can get our piece. If the state's, if another organization's not night paving, we may not have enough demand to keep them open.
Right.
Or you will, but you're gonna pay a big premium just to get the plant. Let's see, we talked that one. Okay, so Union Ave, Main to Spring, there's out years, we haven't quite locked that in, depends on how long it lasts. When we did the asphalt paving this year, we did two different types of paving. When we did from Main Street going up to Spring Street, we put a thicker on, knowing we had to buy about 4 or 5 years out of it. When we hit Street and went towards Busy Corner, we just put enough to get it through the winter. Because we were starting to have problems rutting on that piece. So for the most part, what we're finding out is when we reclaim, we're having to add stone in to get the right mix of sub-base material to hold up to what truck traffic we're getting now. Sometimes we can substitute it or reduce the amount of stone by having more asphalt in it. So it may not be a total loss in dollars that way, because we may not have to buy enough stone, may not have to buy more stone to put into it. If you looked at what we were doing on Court Street, we were reclaiming to about 12 inches deep, and we were throwing stone into it to increase the load carrying capability. Questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
On this list here, this isn't outdated, is it? The
Uh,
list we had here?
Is that the one that you gave him? Okay, it's not outdated.
Okay, so way down towards the end, says modified traffic signal intersection of Oak and must be Main,
Correct.
or North Main Street.
Right.
What is that?
That would be the ADA accessibility portion.
Well, maybe in the meantime, they can get the left turn when you're heading south. When you make a left turn on the Oak Street towards Coke Hill, to work like it does northbound, so it doesn't trip that turn instantly.
Okay.
Because right now, if we're going north, and somebody makes a left turn in front of us, we have that same issue we're talking about down here on Main and Court Street. It stops you instantly. Whereas if you're going north and you're gonna make a left on Oak Street, it doesn't do that, like it's not supposed to. So I thought maybe that's what that meant. I said, geez, that's,
No.
so, okay, thank you.
Other questions?
As always, you do
Good job.
a good job. You know the answers to all our questions. That's a good sign.
I try. I gotta do it. I always have to do it. I found another picture.
Okay.
That's a mine clearing line charge for engineer types,
Nice.
clearing a minefield. Not to, well, kind of facetious. If we wait too long in the parking garage, that's what we may be doing.
Oh, if David were only here tonight, can you email that to him? And tell him that we were discussing
You
the
are a
parking garage?
troublemaker.
No, seriously, just tell him
You are a
that
troublemaker.
we were discussing
Yeah,
the
we have a
parking garage,
solution.
and this came up.
Yeah, we have a solution.
We have the solution.
I am, as an engineer, I'm scared that we're gonna wait too long on the parking garage. And then the problem may become, if we're demolishing it, it may cost a lot more because then we've got the level of effort we have to do to carefully demolish it might increase.
Why are we waiting on that? Because of David?
No, David
David
wants
wants it gone.
David wants it gone, I think many.
It's quite a
people
few
do.
different reasons right now.
It's not all public, it's private and public, so there's that issue.
Which is a terrible issue.
Which is huge.
That is,
Well, of course it's huge, yeah. and
whoever
it's-
came up
it-
with that.
There is a solution, but it's expensive, very,
All the solutions are expensive,
yeah,
every one of them.
so,
Garage is over 10.
but you never know, maybe Chaos and Kindness will pay for it, and then we'll be all set.
Yeah, they're the answer.
Well, Wes, thank you very much.
Right.
We'll see you next year.
You may see me,
Certainly kept all your promises from last year,
Hopefully,
so.
a new parking garage isn't on subject either.
And
Have a
thank
good
you
night.
for the potholes on Park Street.
I think what's gonna
Get
the,
us a couple years, maybe.
the,
we're gonna fix the first.
just for those who haven't been totally up to date, the city council blessed the plan for, don't quote me on the exact number, for about 34 of the private streets.
Yeah.
So I met with the residents and owners on Kingsley, because they're my guinea pig.
Right.
They're gonna be the ones I use to test, because they're a short section, a complicated area to test the principle. Once I get that, then we'll start going through.
And my neighborhood would be perfect, because they're all one block long streets.
Yep.
But they have heavy trailer traffic and boat traffic through there, so, you know, they get torn to crap.
Have we officially ended the public meeting?
What's that?
Are we, oh,
We're still live?
Yep.
all right, so, shall we perhaps adjourn at 8:18? Any objections?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed,
Charlie?
none?
The last few days.
Right, Charlie's in favor. So,